What's up everybody, Commander Sanctum here, and today we have a brand new deck tech using Elenda, Saint of Dusk. Elenda is a 4/4 vampire knight for 2 white-black that has hexproof and protection from instants. She also has, as long as your life total is greater than your starting life total, Elenda gets +1/+1 and has menace. Elenda gets an additional +5/+5 as long as your life total is at least 10 greater than your starting total. So basically, if you have 50 plus life, Elenda is a 10/10 with menace and lifelink, making her an absolutely monster attacker. Needless to say, Elenda functions best in a life gain deck, which is very easy to do in Orzhov colors. This tech deck will be just that, a life gain focused deck with Elenda as a primary win condition due to her being an absolutely devastating attacker if you have enough life. We'll also lean a little bit into the whole Ixalan theme with Elenda, having a sub-theme of vampires to round out her deck. With that, let's get into the card highlights. To start out with, we have access to really some of the best life gain effects in a multiplayer game in the Soul Sisters. Specifically Soul Warden and Soul's Attendant, which will gain you 1 life anytime a creature enters the battlefield. Not just under your control, but literally every creature. With 4 players at the table, these are likely going to be gaining you a ton of life, and may even be able to get you that 50 plus life by turn 4, immediately activating Elenda when you play her. We also have Authority of the Consuls, which while not triggering off of your creatures, does make your opponent's creatures enter play tapped, which can be a nice benefit against a lot of decks. We also have Sutra Priest and Elis Ilkor Sadistic Pilgrim, which will gain you 1 life whenever another creature enters under your control. They also have the added benefit of pinging your opponent's life as well, with Sutra Priest doing 1 damage to an opponent whenever they have a creature enter, and Elis doing 1 damage to each opponent whenever one of your creatures dies. Along the same lines as the previous 2 cards, we also have a number of life drain effects, where we gain life while our opponents lose life. Kambal, Council of Allocation, and Bloodchief Ascension both drain 2 life under different circumstances. Kambal will do this whenever an opponent casts a spell, and Bloodchief Ascension will do this whenever a card enters an opponent's graveyard. Honestly, both of these effects can be extremely powerful, since players have to cast spells, and cards will naturally go to the graveyard over time, making them very effective ways to both gain life and kill your opponents. We also have Bantu's Monument, which will drain 1 life from each opponent whenever you cast a creature spell. It also has the added benefit of making our black creatures cost 1 less, letting us potentially get Elenda out quicker. There are also a number of cards that drain life whenever a creature dies. Blood Artist is one of the most well-known cards that does this, draining someone 1 life whenever any creature dies. Cruel Celebrant and Bastion of Remembrance only trigger whenever one of your creatures dies, but does have the added benefit of hitting each opponent, making a board wipe potentially devastating if you have enough creatures out. To help us achieve our goal of massive life gain, we can use cards that double the amount of life we gain whenever we do. Rock's Faithmender and Alhamret's Archive are 2 common ways to achieve this. The Archive is especially nice, as it'll also double the number of extra cards we can draw. Card draw is one of the most important facets of Magic, making this a win-win card for us. There are a few cards that fit very well with our whole theme. They make a number of creature tokens to trigger our Soul Sisters, the tokens have life gain, and they're vampires. March of the Canonized, Call to the Feast, and the other Elenda, the Dusk Rose, all make 1/1 vampire tokens that have lifelink. The lifelink is, obviously, especially important for us, as it gives us chump blockers that can gain us life if need be. March of the Canonized is especially nice, as it can double as a win con if you have enough permanents out, since it'll start making you 4/3 flying creatures that can be used to beat down opponents. These tokens do lose lifelink, however, which is something to keep in mind. We also have a number of normal creatures that give us lifelink. Serra Ascendant is the quintessential life gain commander card, as it starts out the game on turn 1 as a 6/6 flying lifelinker. Archangel of Thune not only has lifelink, but also one of the best abilities for a life gain strategy. Combine it with something like the Soul Sisters, and within no time, your entire board will be absolutely massive. Sorin of House Markov will be easy to flip to his Planeswalker side in this deck, while also providing you with a good lifelinker and even the Extort ability. Debt to the Deathless and Exsanguinate are 2 of the best X-based life drain spells out there, and we can use both of them in this deck. These basically act as additional win conditions, as the longer you play the game, the more mana you can pump into them and the lower your opponent's life totals will be. That being said, they can also be good bursts of life gain if you find yourself getting low because you're being heavily targeted. Life gain strategies have access to some good card draw effects that we can use. Well of Lost Dreams is the most common example, as it'll let you pay mana equal to or less than the amount of life you gain to draw that many cards. Needless to say, in some cases, this can be a ton of cards at once, or a trickle of cards similar to a Mind's Eye. Twilight Prophet is the Bob of Life Drain, netting you a card each upkeep while also draining your opponents for potentially quite a bit of life depending on the card you get. Exemplar of Light is a new card that, while restricted to drawing a card once per turn, can draw you a card on everyone's turns when paired with the Soul Sister effects. Not to mention, the Exemplar has the potential to become a massive flying creature, since the +1/+1 counter effect is not restricted to once per turn. Fumigate and Kaya's Wrath are great board wipes that gain you life while killing all the creatures, so at least you'll get something positive out of it if you have to cast one of these with your own board full. Karlov of the Ghost Council is more targeted removal, but does exile, making it an effective way to snipe off creatures. Honestly, you don't even need to use his removal ability, since he'll become a massive attacker in absolutely no time. Finally, we have some good utility cards that work well with the deck. Since we have a vampire sub-theme, and our commander herself is a vampire, New Blood is an excellent choice to let us steal one of our opponent's pesky creatures. Akroma's Will is a game ender if we have enough creatures out, and can give our creatures lifelink that don't naturally have it. Vizkopa Guildmage can also give our creatures lifelink, and can even act as a single turn Sanguine Bond type of effect to help kill our opponents quicker. Speaking of Sanguine Bond, we also have Sanguine Bond. This is a great card that can act as a win condition in the deck, as it'll drain our opponents very quickly. You can also add Exquisite Blood in if you want that infinite combo, but for this deck tech, I've left it out. Speaking of win conditions, we also have Aetherflux Reservoir, the most common life gain win condition out there. Even if you don't like using its Death Laser effect, it can make for a decent life gain source if you're able to cast enough spells in a turn. Here's an example deck list utilizing all the previously mentioned cards. Additional cards include more Soul Sister-esque effects, like Hinterland Sanctifier and Case of the Uneaten Feast, token generation with Elenda's Hierophant and Sorin Lord of Innistrad, and recursion effects for many of our creatures in Ascend from Avernus and Raise the Past. Elenda, Saint of Dusk is a card that I personally like, but not one that I think will be all that used. When it comes to Orzhov colored life gain commanders, we have quite a few to choose from. And honestly, most of them are likely going to be better than Elenda, since at the end of the day, Elenda is basically just a big situational beater and doesn't have too much of a life gain engine herself. You could potentially make more of a Voltron style deck with Elenda, since at her full potential she is a massive 10/10 with Menace, but you still need some life gain effects to actually get her to that state. I just have a sneaking suspicion that most people looking for this style of deck will probably have Elenda pretty low on the list for potential commanders. Still, I think she does have a place in the ranks, as it's pretty easy in Commander to get over 50 life pretty quickly. Also, the fact that she has protection from instants is nothing to scoff at, as it does make her much harder to be killed from targeted removal. I think Elenda is a perfectly valid option to play if you want an Orzhov life gain deck, especially one that lets you beat down with a massive commander. She may not be the best in the theme, but who cares? I think uniqueness and variety is much more fun and interesting than cookie cutter. If you're of the same mindset, give Elenda a try. Even if you tweak the deck to be more on the Voltron side, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by how effective she can be. I hope you enjoyed watching this deck tech on Elenda, Saint of Dusk. The full deck list outlined in this video can be found at the Architect link at the top of the description. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to drop a like and comment, as well as subscribe to the channel for more Magic content. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.